Welcome to another edition of Artsbeat TV and radio here on Westfield Community Programming, Channel 15, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Agawam Media and Southwick Community Programming. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we're going downriver to Goodspeed Musicals. It's in East Haddam, Connecticut, and we're chatting with Donna Lynn Hilton. And talking about a really fabulous Goodspeed season, both in East Haddam and at their second theater in Chester, Connecticut. And what I'm really excited about is the quintessential American musical of all times opens the Goodspeed season, and that's Gypsy. And that is bookmark number one, and the season ends with another American musical classic, Dreamgirls. Donna Lynn, you have a great season up and coming.
Thank you, Mark. We're really excited about it. In addition to being a great season, it's our 60th anniversary season, which is a real milestone. So we're thrilled about what's coming up.
I interviewed the people from Hartford Stage, and their 60th is also coming up.
Yeah.
Was it a period of time going back that that regional theaters bloomed in America?
Yes, absolutely. In the early to mid 60s, so many regional theaters were inaugurated in those years, and so we celebrate that anniversary with a lot of really exceptional colleagues all across the country.
This season up and coming, which opens with Gypsy, is one that you've curated from beginning to end without a pandemic, and without having to take into consideration that COVID was going to restrict the numbers of people you could have on stage and what kind of productions and all that. What made you choose Gypsy and Dreamgirls plus the two in between for a 60th anniversary celebration?
Yeah, we had a great year coming back in 2022, did better than we dreamed we would do. We ended up at 82% capacity on the season last year, which was a really phenomenal recovery. But I think we did that because we made a conscious decision to return as quickly as possible to be in the Goodspeed our audiences expected us to be. And I think that carries through into programming this season. Gypsy is a title that, as you alluded to in the introduction, I think it is possibly the best piece of musical theater ever written. No offense to a lot of other great pieces, but I just think it is right there at the top. It's a great play to begin with, and then you add Julie Stein's incredible score to it, and it's just a really great piece of theater. It is a bucket list show for Jen Thompson, who is directing the piece for us, and she came to me with a very short list of shows last year. Gypsy was right at the top of it. We were able to break the rights loose, which has been a little bit difficult for us to do for a number of years, and so we grabbed the opportunity to do it right away. Dreamgirls, at the other end of the season, will open in the late fall, is a show that is a real touch point for me as a musical theater artist. It is one of the first Broadway shows I ever saw. I still remember starting the standing ovation at the end of Act One when Jennifer Holliday performed "And I Am Telling You I'm Not Leaving, Not Going." And it's just to be in the position to be able to program it at Goodspeed, to assign to direct it the fabulous Lillian Brown, who came up in the storefront theater experience in the Chicago area, has won multiple Jeff Awards for new musical development. It was just a really wonderful opportunity to bring her to Goodspeed for the first time. And then Summer Stock and the 12, which are the second and third shows of the season, both new works, one which is familiar to many people from the Judy Garland, Gene Kelly film, but which is a completely new adaptation with a book by Sherry Steinkellner and musical arrangements by Doug Besterman, who many in the audience will know from his work on Schmigadoon most recently, is just although a new musical is going to feel and look and dance like a classic golden age piece of musical theater. And the 12, I think, is the piece in the show that is going to challenge all of us a little bit more. It is a wonderful new musical by Robert Shankin and Neil Berg. Robert won the Pulitzer for the Kentucky Cycle when I was much younger. Neil is a wonderful composer who has traveled the country with a series of Broadway concerts that he does with orchestras and symphonies, but is also a wonderful composer. And the piece is being directed by John Doyle, who, of course, the audience will know from his multiple Tony Awards and nominations. The Sweeney Todd revival with Patti LuPone, the Color Purple revival most recently were his big Broadway hits. And so it's I think, a really exciting season. It speaks to, I think, the future of Goodspeed, in that we're going to continue to produce and present the best of the classic canon, but we're also going to push our envelope by continuing to develop and present exciting, joyful, entertaining new work that occasionally challenges our audiences to consider a slightly more deep experience with the theater.
And as we're talking about Goodspeed, those of you that are listening or watching that want to learn more about what's going on at Goodspeed, go to their website at goodspeed.org. And you may think, well, gee, it's very far away, but it's really from Springfield. It's maybe an hour and 15 minutes. And it's in the most beautiful part of the Connecticut River, just where the river widens as it goes towards the Sound. It's a great place to go. I love going early and just sitting there on the lawn and watching the swing bridge, which is you see it is going. That's a famous bridge, open for the boats to go up and down the river. It just to me is a great getaway, even though it's an hour away.
Yeah, we say make it a Goodspeed day. You will not regret the drive down. It is an easy drive right down 91, head off onto Route 9 for a few exits and you're here. And come early, pack a picnic and have a picnic on the Goodspeed lawn, or the beautiful Gelston House is right next door to us with a beautiful outdoor dining area, and just make a whole day of it. You will not regret it.
It doesn't make a difference to me whether it's spring, summer, fall, or oddly enough, winter, but I think that there's something to be said about East Haddam any time of the year.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area. And we have, for people who are outdoor enthusiasts as well, we have beautiful hiking trails, so much open space and land conservation space here in East Haddam. It's a beautiful community.
And talk a little bit about the two shows that you're doing at Chester, because Chester's been dark for a while. So it's nice to know that the second theater is coming back.
Yes, our second stage, the Terrace Theater in Chester, Connecticut, just one exit further down Route 9. It has been dark since Christmas of 2019. So we are really thrilled to be able to reopen it. Chose not to reopen yet because we knew that it took everything we had to produce our spectacular season at the Opera House last year, but staffing is feeling much more robust. We have a lot of great new team members at Goodspeed, and so we're really excited to reopen the Terrace with two productions this year. One of them, Here You Come Again, features the music of the great Dolly Parton. Who does not love Dolly Parton? And it's a really wonderful story about a guy who went home to live in his parents' attic during the pandemic and has some personal challenges that he has to resolve. And Dolly appears to him out of a poster, and through much of her wonderful, inspiring song, helps him get his life back on track. And then the second piece is something I'm equally excited about. It is a piece that has been in development with Goodspeed since early 2019. It was begun at our Johnny Mercer Foundation Writers Grove, developed through our Festival of New Musicals. We've done further workshop of it since we reopened, and that is Private Jones. It is the story of a deaf World War I Welsh sniper who made it through the war without hearing and largely hiding his hearing impairment from his military supervisors. It's a really inspiring story, and also gives us the opportunity to put 3 deaf or hearing impaired, hard of hearing actors on our stage and really examine a whole new way of developing musical theater. It's going to be a really exciting piece that uses sound Foley, some projection, a lot of artistic sign language as well as American Sign Language to tell the story of Gomer Jones' travel through World War I. And it's by Marshall Palett. I should not forget the brilliant artist who has written it. Marshall is just a visionary artist. He has written book music and lyrics and will be directing the show as well.
Now, with some of the shows, like the newer ones, like Summer Stock, which is the adaptation of the film, do you have expectations that it might go on? I mean, the last film kind of adaptation of a stage musical, I believe, was Irving Berlin's Holiday Inn, and it went right to Broadway.
Yes,
From
yes.
Goodspeed.
I mean, we certainly hope that will happen. It's a really popular title. It is, like I say, it feels like a classic golden age musical. It's really well written. The book by Sherry Steinkellner, who was one of the writers of Sister Act, that much of your audience will have seen on Broadway or since it's been in licensing elsewhere. And the musical arrangements, classic songs from the musical theater canon, but arranged and orchestrated by our wonderful Doug Besterman, who's got just some incredible credits. And it just feels fresh and new. It's being directed and choreographed by Donna Fior, who works a lot at the Stratford Festival. She's relatively new to American audiences, but her choreography is going to be some of the most thrilling we've had on Goodspeed stage in a long time. Just some really wonderful dancing. And so, yeah, we hope it moves on. And based on how work is going so far, we're headed into another workshop in New York next week for the piece. And based on how work is going so far, I have really high hopes for it. But there's no current plan in place.
How do you put so much dance and musical theater on such a small stage? I mean, I've covered Goodspeed probably on and off for 30 years, but I ran down last fall to see 42nd Street. I couldn't believe you could take a big show like that and condense it and put it on a small stage, but it still felt like it was a super huge show.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's precision. Precision is how we do it. It is a very small space. The stage is 21 feet deep and 28 feet wide, I believe. But as you experienced last year with 42nd Street, and I hope a lot of your audience did as well, because that show was packing them in. We do really amazing things on this space. And I think that's sort of the secret of our success, is that so much energy comes off of that stage into that small auditorium that it sort of overwhelms the audience. But precision is how we do it. A lot of rehearsal, a lot of detail, and a lot of precision. Here, when you have to be here, you have to be here, and no one else can be in that spot. And backstage as well. We often say there's as much choreography going on backstage as there is going on stage in a Goodspeed musical.
I interviewed a couple of weeks ago David Kidwell, who's the music director and the conductor for the Holyoke Civic Symphony. Mm-hmm. And he oftentimes plays second keyboard at Goodspeed. Yes. And he was talking about 42nd Street. He was the musician that was in the green room outside the pit because there wasn't enough room for all the musicians. And he said he never saw the show except through a monitor. Right. And he said you wouldn't believe how a small theater like Goodspeed, it was like a traffic jam. You could not move out of step in one place because you get knocked over with everybody running around.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, David was set up in the green room 3 floors below the stage. The rest of the band was in the pit, but the second keyboard was set up in a box in the green room 3 floors below, and I would walk by and peep in at them just playing away. They get earphones on, you can't hear a thing. But it's rare. I can't remember what the details of that orchestration were that meant we didn't have room to fit that keyboard in the pit, but we did not.
When you look at the season that you've lined up, I mean, obviously you've worked in theater for a long time, and you are the director, so you have to make sure that budgets are taken into consideration and available talent. But of the upcoming season, is there one musical that is to you a personal favorite that you've always wanted to do that you say, wow, I'm glad we're finally doing it?
That's hard. That's like asking me to pick my favorite child.
Yeah.
Because they're all really special. Like I say, Gypsy is such a beautiful show. It is such a great play. I love it. I've been in and out of the rehearsal hall a lot. It's in rehearsal right now. And I just love being there and hearing it and just experiencing that really tight, really beautiful book that Arthur Lawrence wrote. It's a favorite. Summer stock, the process of summer stock, taking a classic film and bringing it onto the Goodspeed stage, putting it in front of our audience for the very first time. Much like Holiday Inn, it is such a gift to be in a position to be able to do that, and to support and guide that work is just a gift. So I love that process. I have known about the 12 since 2013 when the composer first presented it to me. I had such a visceral reaction to that piece. It moved me as not a lot of theater does. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to put that in front of our audience and to welcome John Doyle to Goodspeed for the first time. And then Dreamgirls, was a moment in my life. I just adore that show. And if you wanted me to sing the whole score to you right now, I could do it. I won't, but I could. And so, it's just really hard. I think I'm just really excited about the whole season. And we have to talk about our gala.
I was going to say that you've got Dreamgirls, but Jennifer Holliday, who burst into stardom, is going to star at the Goodspeed Gala.
Yes, she is. She's going to do a full set for us. Jennifer, who originated the role of Effie White on Broadway, played it for most of the run, is going to sing at our gala. She's going to do a 45-minute to 1 hour long set in the Goodspeed Opera House. She'll be performing some songs from Dreamgirls, as well as some of the material that she's known for in more recent years. It's going to be phenomenal. And when I reached out to Jennifer, made the connection, she's been just incredible to work with. And I said to her, I got a little emotional talking to her because I still remember that moment when she was delivering that incredible performance as Effie in Dreamgirls. And I don't, there are not many performances like that in the history of musical theater.
I went to see Dreamgirls the second night that it played in New York. I didn't know, except I had a friend who said, well, Michael Bennett's directing it and, he's really good. So let's get tickets now for it before it opens. And to see that performance, it's probably one of the 10 performances I will never forget that I've ever seen.
I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. I said to Jennifer, I've been chasing that high the rest of my life. That was just once in a lifetime.
We got to take a very quick break here to acknowledge our underwriters. And while we do, check out Goodspeed's website at goodspeed.org to find out more about the season. And we'll be back to talk more about Goodspeed. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. If you've missed a part of today's program or you want to watch it again or share it with your friends, it's archived on YouTube under WSKB Community Radio. We're talking with Donna Lynn Hilton, who is the artistic director of Goodspeed Musicals with 2 theaters in East Haddam and Chester, Connecticut, just downriver. The Opera House itself in East Haddam is presenting 4 shows this year, including the All-American Classic Gypsy and another All-American Classic Dreamgirls with 2 other works in between, which could become American classics. And then at Chester, across the river, 2 completely new works, one based on the music of Dolly Parton, and it's, I believe, written by Bruce Valanche. And directed by Gabriel Barry, who has directed many shows at Goodspeed. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. Bruce worked with us on another project. I'm blanking. Oh, A Sign of the Times, which some of our Terrace audience may have seen. And he's a funny guy. Has just written a really delightful story. Just feel good with those great Dolly Parton country tunes. It's just a really feel good piece.
So a show like this that you're doing in Chester, when did the show come to you? When did somebody say, would you like to do it? And how long has it been in development before it actually makes it to the stage?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So Here You Come Again is actually a co-production with 5 other theaters. It began its life as a commission from Florida Studio Theater in Sarasota, Florida. During the pandemic, they took some of their COVID recovery money and commissioned some artists to write. And one of those pieces is where Here You Come Again originated. And I first heard the piece during a Zoom reading in late 2020. Gabe Barry, who has directed many pieces for Goodspeed and appeared as an actor originally on the Goodspeed stage, invited me to a Zoom reading. You know, we were so zoomed out at the time. We're all so fearful about what was going on with COVID. This was before the vaccine and all of that. And despite participating in that reading via Zoom, I had such a great time. I was so engaged. I was so moved. I was doing a lot of Zoom work at the time and not much was cutting through to actually touch me. So I went, okay, well, I need to pay a little bit of attention to this. I didn't have the job that I have now at the time. But later, after I was in this seat, Gabe came back and he was working with the Delaware Theater Company in Wilmington, Delaware to put together a production that would then play several theaters. So the show opened last September, I think it was, in Delaware. It has played a theater in Texas. It played the Pittsburgh CLO over the holidays. It is currently about to open at Studio 10 outside in Franklin, Tennessee, outside Nashville, and then it will come to Goodspeed. So, one of the reasons that it made, in addition to being a great piece that I was really excited about it made a lot of sense to be able to share the cost of building and rehearsing the show with those other theaters, which also made it possible for us to run the show for longer because we have a good idea of what we're dealing with. I saw the show last September, so the show's actually going to run for 5 weeks here at Goodspeed. But it has been in development since 2020.
So will the show have the same cast and production that it has in these other theaters when it comes to Goodspeed?
It has the same production. The show was built in Delaware with the intention that it would travel to these other theaters. Goodspeed is currently the last stop, although my understanding is there's some conversation about other theaters being interested in producing it. Audiences are loving it at the other locations that it's played. It stars an actress named Trisha Paluccio, who has had a lifelong love affair with Dolly Parton. She, since childhood, has just been a fan of Dolly Parton and her music. And during the pandemic, when this opportunity came up to commission something, she said to Gabe Barry, the director, who happens to be her husband, I've always wanted to see if I could tell a Dolly story. And so they started putting it together. The only other character is a character named Kevin, who has been played by a couple or several different gentlemen in the development of the piece.
So as this piece is developing and you're working with the other theaters, you have to take into consideration that Goodspeed at Chester is a very small theater, and it might be playing in another theater that's 4 times the size. So do the sets and the costumes have to be, and lighting and sound have to be reconfigured theater by theater?
There is proving to be some adjustment that has to be made for each theater, but for the most part, by the time the set was finalized, the set designer, Anna Luizos, knew which spaces had signed on to produce the show. So she was able to actually put the show into each theater's ground plan and make sure that the pieces worked. Now, there have been some surprises, as there are bound to be, but it actually it's a very unit set, travels on the back of one truck. So it's been a pretty reasonable transition from one theater to the other.
Well, I have to say I'm looking forward to that, but of course I'm looking forward to all of them. I
better
can't
be.
I can't choose which ones I want to go to first. Although I got to say that Gypsy is a show that I have probably seen 10 different productions of Gypsy in my lifetime, and I never tire of seeing it. So people that have seen it before, it has the role of a lifetime in it, the role of Mama Rose. And I wish I had been alive to see Ethel Merman originate the role, but Patti LuPone did a fine job in my book.
She did. And Tyne Daly before that, I did see that Tyne Daly production as well, and she was phenomenal. And in our production, Judy McLean plays Mama Rose. Many of the audience will know Judy from her long run in Mamma Mia. If you see her face, you'll say, oh yeah, I know her. And she's just a wonderful actress. She's got a killer voice. She's just giving everything that she has to this role. She's so excited to be doing it. Apparently it had been a bit of a bucket list role for her as well. And she's just thrilling in the role. I've been in rehearsal a lot. The dynamic between Judy, Philip Hernandez, who plays Herbie, and Talia Suskauer, who plays Louise, is just phenomenal. They've just clicked, and really wonderful stuff is happening in the room. And I think for people who have seen Gypsy before, I always maintain you haven't seen Goodspeed do Gypsy. And that's my job. But also, I think that a play as good as the Gypsy play is revealed in a very different way on a stage as intimate as Goodspeed's, right? And people see things and hear things they may have never had the opportunity to see and hear in a production of Gypsy, just because of the proximity to the action on stage.
And somebody said to me that it shows that are about backstage musical, or shows within a shows, are the most beloved musicals that we have, like 42nd Street or Dreamgirls, which takes place behind the scenes, or Gypsy. And it takes the fable of the world of the theater and puts it into real life, and vice versa.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, I think we're all intrigued about the whole concept of the show must go on. 42nd Street, will it happen? Will it not? In Gypsy, will Gypsy break away from her mother the way Baby June did and became June Havoc, the actor? Or in Dreamgirls, will Effie make it on her own? She was, and be able to have the comeback that she deserves. It's those Cinderella stories that we all grow up with and really love, that are just transformed when they're done as a musical within a musical.
Yeah. Well, and Summer Stock is the same. Summer Stock is a kind of play as well. Yeah. Excellent.
So before we go, on your bucket list of shows you'd like to see Goodspeed do in the next few years, is there a show that's been in the back of your mind that if somebody would say, I'll pay for whatever it costs to make it happen? Are there a couple of shows, Donna, that you really have to do?
I really want to do Crazy for You. Really want to do that show. There's been a commercial option on it for a long time, and we're close enough to New York that we can't get those rights. Oh God, I'm going to get off of this call and say, why didn't I think of? Because there are shows we talk about so often, and I'm drawing a blank other than Crazy for You. I want at some point to see Goodspeed produce Come From Away, which you may remember, Mark, made its American debut on our stage as a Festival of New Musicals presentation in 2013. I would love to see that piece come home to Goodspeed. Not sure when we'll be able to do that, but I would love to do it.
And one other question. I mean, you've produced, not you personally, but Goodspeed over its 60 years has sent so many shows to Broadway: Man of La Mancha, Annie, Shenandoah, Holiday Inn, and a whole slew of others. If you could go back into the canon of what Goodspeed's done over its 60 years, is there one show from the history of Goodspeed that you think you'd like to bring back?
We will bring Annie back for sure. Yeah. Annie has its 50th anniversary at Goodspeed in 2026. I'd really like to think that we could make that happen.
It's amazing to think that it's 50 years old because that
I know.
just makes me feel really old.
We're not as young as we used to be.
We're not. Well, Donna, thanks so much for being here today. We've been chatting with Donna Lynn Hilton from Goodspeed Musicals, and I hope you all get to go to Goodspeed this season. You can get ticket information at goodspeed.org. Thanks, Donna Lynn Hilton, for being here. We're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters, and we'll be back with more Artsbeat TV and radio. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Join me, Tina Gorman, each week from 6 to 8 a.m. for Wake Up Wednesday, when my guests and I discuss health, wellness, and lifestyle reimagined.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. If you missed a part of today's program or you want to watch it again or share it with your friends, it's archived on YouTube under WSKB Community Radio. We have our annual visit today with the actor Kate Baldwin. She has appeared so many times at Berkshire Theater Group in Bells Are Ringing, A Little Night Music and Constellations, and she returns to open the Berkshire Theater Group and Wham Theater season in their co-production of What the Constitution Means to Me, which is just about to open at the Unicorn Theater in Stockbridge. It's directed by Kristen Vangenhoven. It's written by Heidi Schreck, and it was a popular Broadway show before the pandemic and has toured. And although there's been a TV film version of it, trust me, from my own experiences of seeing it live, there is something very unique about this play, which is the story of one person's discovery what's in the Constitution. And when I saw the tour of it, they handed out little copies of the Constitution afterwards, which I took home to read along with the playbill. And I can't remember having read it since I was maybe in 7th or 8th grade, but it's the framework of everything we live by, and it's a good learning experience. But this play is absolutely a charmer on so many levels. And Kate, it's good to see you again.
Nice to see you too, Mark. Thanks so much for having me.
So you generally do musicals. I mean, you were in the area last year at Goodspeed and 42nd Street, and you did Hello, Dolly with Bette Midler on Broadway. What made you decide to do a play like this, which is essentially a one-person play?
Right. Well, just to clarify, there are 3 characters in the play. I play the role of Heidi, who is a version of the writer Heidi Schreck. And then joining me is an actor named Jay Sefton, who plays the Legionnaire, who is representative of a real person in Heidi's life, a person who guided her and helped her when she was a young person and would go around to American Legion halls and debate the Constitution and earn scholarship money. And then the last 15 minutes of the play include a young activist, a local activist named Zuri Adams, who's actually a student at MCLA. And we put on a debate, a real debate right there for you in front of your eyes. And we just staged it yesterday. So what drew me to this play? This particular play was really meaningful to me. I saw it, I think, for the first time in 2018 at the New York Theater Workshop. And then I loved it so much that I brought my mother back to see it once it made its Broadway run. I urged my husband to go see it. He bought a ticket way up in the balcony for the very last performance because it was such a hot ticket. It was so hard to get a seat. But this play really spoke to me. And it feels like this is a wonderful way and an appropriate way for somebody like me to become sort of activated and use my gifts as an actor, as a performer, to infuse a little bit more of who I am and what I think about the state of affairs, and how I can appropriately and hopefully entertainingly impart that.
You're part of, we could say you're part of the Berkshire Theater Group family. You and your husband have done so many shows there, but this is a different situation where you're in a Berkshire Theater Group theater, and it's a co-production with the great people at Wham. What is it like working with the Wham folks?
It's wonderful. Kristen Van Geenhoven is our director. She founded Wham 14 years ago. Wham is an activist theater company, so that right there should tell you that they're very in line with the thrust of this play, which I consider a civic act. And she brought along her wonderful designers from Wham, and we are housed, as you said, within the Unicorn Theater, which is the Berkshire Theater space. So it really is a co-production with uniting the forces behind the scenes, company management and theater management. Everybody's coming together in such a lovely collaborative way. I think since the pandemic, there's been a real effort to check in with people and make sure everybody feels good about the work that we're doing, and everybody who's involved gets to talk about what's working, what's not working. And so the spirit of collaboration is very high between these two entities. I'm really thrilled to thank you for saying that I'm part of the Berkshire family. I really love coming back here. And I told Kate McGuire last night, I said, what else? What can we plan for next year?
Yeah, I'm in my theater going at Berkshire Theater Group, which goes back a long time because Eric Hill and I used to work together along with Kate. There's certain people that come back every couple of years, and you and Graham are among them, and have done some really great theater in the Berkshires. So it's great to have you home, so to speak. If we can claim you as a homegrown actor, although I know
absolutely, I'm claiming you, so go ahead and claim me. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I know you did 42nd Street last fall at Goodspeed, which got some of the best notices around and was really a hit. And I had a guest on my show who was starring in Fun Home at TheaterWorks, Aaron Lazar, and he said he was doing a lot of concertizing with you in smaller theaters and in larger theaters, and the two of you are really enjoying doing some concertizing. So are you able to balance your concerts and your theater these days?
Yeah, the great gift of having a musical theater career as well as an acting theater career is this wonderful outlet, which is concert work. And it's its own thing. And in fact, when Kristen and I initially spoke about doing What the Constitution Means to Me, she said, well, how are you going to handle, how do you feel and how do you think about standing in front of an audience for 90 minutes on your own, just you, and telling your stories? And I said, well, that's what we do in concerts all the time. Yes, we have songs, but the banter that happens, and especially the banter with my dear pal, Aaron, we've been friends for over 20 years now, is as crafted as the songs are. We try to make it as fun and as informative and as personal as we can. And that's what Heidi's doing in her play. She's making it charming and engaging and personal and informative too. So I feel like my concert work has prepared me really well for carrying a play like this one. And yeah, Aaron and I crafted this evening together. We have this weird habit of working together on theater projects once every 10 years. So it's been really fun for us as we have grown up, really, to have met each other in our 20s, met again and worked together again in our 30s, and then re-encounter each other in our 40s. We did a production of Bridges of Madison County last year together, and that was really significant for the both of us. The first piece of theater coming out of the pandemic for both of us. So it was a real, reawakening, re-engagement. It was a wonderful thing.
How did it feel to come out of the pandemic and go back to live performing? I mean, I know you did a lot of Zoom things and all of that, but what did it feel like when you finally got back on the stage and that interaction with the stage and the audience? Because we all miss that so much.
It's true. You know, I think the pandemic afforded us a moment, great pause, in order to think about why we do what we do, and what do we get from it? What do we want to do with it? How to approach it? And so, just the fact that I get to stand on stage, tell stories, sing songs sometimes, I have enormous gratitude for it. Whereas maybe before I took it a little bit for granted, and I will never, ever take it for granted, ever, ever again. I think it is my great privilege to be able to use what I know and who I am, and hopefully have an audience meet me halfway, maybe even more than halfway, and come and invest their time and their brains and their hearts and try to feel something together and discover something together, right? Like I feel like every evening coming back from the pandemic, doing a show like Bridges was infused with discovery of like, oh yeah, well, this is what a version of life can be like. And a one that I maybe took for granted before.
You're getting a chance right now to work with a living playwright, somebody who is working constant. Heidi Schreck is writing and working. Is she involved in the production in any way? Have you had a chance to chat with her? Has the show changed possibly from its beginnings?
Heidi is not involved in our production, as far as I know. That's not true. Our dramaturg had a wonderful interview with her where she imparted some knowledge to us, but she's not, on the phone with us doing rewrites or making changes that way. However, in her script, she does very explicitly say this is a living, breathing discussion, engagement with the audience, and you should treat it as such. And we are trying to what has revealed itself as really important is keeping abreast of what is happening currently in the world politically. The play was written in 2017 or premiered in 2017, and the world has changed since then. Our Supreme Court has changed since then, and there's a lot of reference to Supreme Court decisions in this play. So we have updated some statistics. We have updated some years that we refer to and Supreme Court decisions. Also, the last 15 minutes of the play, I come out and say, I'm no longer Heidi, I'm Kate. I'm going to do this debate as myself. And so I've taken some liberties to personalize some of my debate arguments. So they refer to, my family, my son, my experience, the fact that I do musicals a lot. I might sing a little bit, who knows? It might be a good debate tactic. It might help me score with the judges, who knows?
Yeah, and you're getting to do this in a small theater where I think the last seat in the back row might be 5 rows from the audience. I mean, the Unicorn is such a fabulous place to be on the stage or to be in the audience. Do you like that kind of intimacy in theater, or do you prefer the bigger stuff like the Colonial or Broadway?
It doesn't matter whether I like this or not. This is what we're doing. So I have to wrap my brain around people are going to be just a couple of feet away. And the stories that are told in this production are deeply personal and could be upsetting for people who have experienced some of the things that Heidi details in the script. So I have to, and Jay and Zuri also have to prepare for that and prepare for being in the room with people who are going to be affected. And we also ask for their participation during the debate. Jay asks them as the as the actor, he says, if you hear something you like, cheer for it. If you hear something you disagree with, boo. So I'm really hopeful that our Berkshire audiences, which I know are really well informed and very savvy, will engage with us that way and let us know how we're doing. And we will be right up close and personal with them. And we just have to acknowledge that. And if somebody sneezes, I'll say bless you. And if somebody's phone goes off, I'll have to ask them to turn it off. And it's going to be that kind of interactive play. The fourth wall that traditionally separates the audience from the actors is gone.
It's totally gone. And one thing we got to add here before we go to a commercial break, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, I had Juliana von Hobrick, the scenic designer, on, who comes on the show regularly, and she talked about, she was going through these old American Legion halls and VFW halls in northern Massachusetts to get the inspiration for the set for this. And this is the show that she was talking about. It's called What the Constitution Means to Me. We're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters. And while we do, if you're interested in getting tickets for this, which is at the Unicorn Theater in Stockbridge at the Berkshire Theater Group. The performances run May 18th through June 3rd. You can go to their website, berkshiretheatergroup.org. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we'll chat more with Kate Baldwin after these messages.
Underwriting for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield, serving the youth of the Whip City and surrounding communities since 1969. For more information on the Great Futures Club for ages 3 to 5, happening weekdays, and the Club Teen Center for ages 11 and older, weekdays from 6:30 till 8 p.m., go online at bcgwestfield.org or visit the club at 28 West Silver Street. The Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield. Great futures start here.
Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at Rockies.com.
Join me, Tina Gorman, each week from 6 to 8 a.m. for Wake Up Wednesday, when my guests and I discuss health, wellness, and lifestyle reimagined.
Community Radio 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. If you've missed a part of today's program or you want to watch it again or share it with your friends, it's archived on YouTube under WSKB Community Radio. We're chatting with Kate Baldwin, who is starring in What the Constitution Means to Me, which opens the Wham and Berkshire Theater Group seasons at the Unicorn Theater in Stockbridge this month. And Kate has been on this program before. She's been at Berkshire Theater Group so many times. She's part of the big Western Mass theater community now. She and her husband, Graham Rowett, have been together in A Little Night Music, Bells Are Ringing, Constellations, and Kate was in 42nd Street at Goodspeed last year. You know, it's Tony Award season, Kate, and you have in your cachet of awards and accolades 2 Tony Award nominations. Somebody asked me to ask you this. What is it, as getting a nomination for a Tony Award, does that change your career in any way?
It does slightly. Yeah, it does. It does in our community, it does, but people outside of our community don't really know what a Tony Award is. And honestly, truly too, if you were to ask me, Kate, who was nominated for Best Actress for a Musical in 2015, I would have to think really hard about like who even won it. I think it does change your career in that more doors are opened for you. But in terms of recent jobs I've had, it's not like I think I'm a rare kind of actor who would rather go in and audition for a role so that I can check out the creative team and they can check me out too, and we can decide together whether or not we speak the same language and will work and will collaborate well. Sometimes when people get a Tony nomination or two, or even the award, then the expectation is that they will never audition again and that they will be offered things. I have to say, with my career, it's kind of been 50-50 since I got some Tony nominations, because I am that kind of person who says, well, if they want me to audition, I would love to come in and meet everybody and give you my idea of what's here. And sometimes that works out really well. In the case of Hello Dolly, that worked out really, really well. In other instances, not so much. But I think having 2 Tony nominations and having a 25-year career, as I have, almost 26 years, has put me in a really lovely spot of kind of feeling like I have some knowledge to impart and have some artistry, good tools in my back pocket. Maybe not words all the time, but you know what I mean.
Because you're well known in the industry and you've got the Tony nominations and you've created a lot of great theater in this career, can you call the shots at this point? Can you decide what you want to do, or is it like everybody else, you audition for the next role? Is your calendar booked out a year in advance?
Sometimes, yes. I know what I'm doing until the fall, and I had an offer to do something this winter that I had to painfully pass on. But yes, there is a comfort in that, in knowing further out, what I'm going to be doing. And then I have lovely people like Kate McGuire, who I can call up and say, what about next summer? Graham and I will come do X, Y, or Z. We were talking about that the other night.
Yeah, you start opposite Graham in several shows. Do you get a chance to work together much, or do you prefer to work separately?
Not recently. We haven't had the chance to work together much. Well, we had this pandemic too, so because we have a 12-year-old, one of us likes to be on duty, and then the other one goes off and does something, and then we try to do a really good job of taking turns. Graham recently was Captain Von Trapp at the Paper Mill Playhouse this past Christmas season, and so I was we call it primary parent. I was primary parent at that point while he was, a parent to 7 kids, Von Trapps. But that's why the summertime is kind of great, because we can all pick up as a family. As long as we are all together as a family, we can, Graham and I can go off and do a show together. But that's harder to do during the school year.
Yeah, and where are the places that you like to work when you're not working in New York?
Along with BTG, I would consider Arena Stage a home. My friend Molly Smith is going to retire there after 25 years, but I have had wonderful experiences there. I would also consider the Huntington in Boston a bit of a home too. I'm actually gonna, once Constitution is over, I'm gonna pitch them an idea for a show with my friend Danny Goldstein, who is a friend of mine from college. We want to go there and do a show together. Where else is a home? Those are the 2 that leap to mind. And New York City Center, honestly, which isn't a Broadway house, is a cultural institution in New York City, sort of adjacent to Carnegie Hall, and it's the home of the Encore series. And the Encore series takes older musicals that have maybe not had revivals, although sometimes they choose really popular musicals, like Into the Woods just came out of the Encore series. But Encores is where I began my career in New York in 1999, and I've done 7 of those. So I really enjoy Encores. They're quick, they're a short run. But it's always been really, really fun for me to go to.
I really, of all the things I run in and out of New York for, the Encores are my favorite, because it's sort of like when we grew up, summer stock, where you'd be doing a show, you'd have a week to rehearse it and put it on. And initially it was just like people were walking around holding scripts, but now they've gotten more and more staged. But I've seen shows there that I had heard the cast recordings of as a kid and never got to see because, they had come and gone. And between them and Goodspeed, they seem to be the 2 places in this country where old musicals can come back.
Yeah, that's right. It's wonderful. And we're looking forward to, at the start of the pandemic, we were rehearsing Kurt Weill and Alan J. Lerner's show from 1947 called Love Life. And Victoria Clark was the director, and it starred Brian Stokes Mitchell and me and a large cast. And that's what we were working on March 12th. 2020, when everything was shut down. And so I have my fingers crossed and all my toes crossed that we'll be able to revisit that at the Encore series sometime, maybe 2024. I'm not sure.
But you were well into rehearsal at that point. I mean, it was like days from opening.
Yes, we were going to begin tech the following day. And I walked into the theater, dressing rooms to have a wig fitting, an hour before rehearsal was to begin. And I saw the stagehands, who I know pretty well because I've done 7 of those. And I said, "Hey, Jerry, how's it going?" He's like, "It's not good, Kate. Are you reading what's happening in Italy? Do you remember that Italy was suffering before things shut down?" And so I always say, trust the stagehands. The stagehands know. They know before the actors do, that's for sure.
Yeah, they are the heart and soul of everything that goes on in any theater around.
That's absolutely right.
The stagehands in the box office, those people know everything with that. So anyway, Kate, thanks for being here this morning. We've been chatting with Kate Baldwin, who's the 2-time Tony-nominated actor, who is a member of Berkshire Theater Group, has been here many times, who opens the season for both Berkshire Theater Group and Wham Theater in Heidi Schreck's What the Constitution Means to Me, directed by Kristen Vangenhoven, running at the Unicorn Theater in Stockbridge. For ticket information, berkshiretheatergroup.org. Kate, thanks so much for being here. It's glad to have you home in Western Mass.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was a delight to talk to you today.
Take good care. And this wraps up another edition of Artsbeat TV and Radio. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. We'll see you next Friday with another edition of Artsbeat.
Flame after flame never burned before. He wasn't you. He wasn't you. Why did no arms seem like home before? Why did my eyes always roam before? What could I do? He wasn't you. You, and no vows ever chained me. No, he wasn't you, and goodbyes never pained me. Now I know why every hope always faded so fast. Only with you was I born to live. Only with you have I love to give. Love that for all of a lifetime will last. Why did champagne lose its year for me? Love's haunting strain disappear for me. What could I do